Hello there everyone, it's me Harry, and for day 20 we'll be doing the very first of my mixed batch episodes, which is what I'll be doing for the rest of the series until day 24, and there could be something great coming up, so yep. So for the first mixed batch, this will be an assortment of different publishers, mainly those where I only own one game from the company. So let's start it off. So first of all, for the PlayStation 2 is the Flintstones in Viva Rock Vegas, a racing game based on the 2000 Universal film with the same name. Here we are. It was developed by a company called Toka Studios and published by Swing Entertainment. So Swing was a German publisher that commonly released games based on Animaniacs and Tiny Toon Adventures. And a lot of their games in the States were published by Conspiracy Entertainment, who I think Swing held a stake in. So if you can see in the copyright on the bottom of here, despite this game only coming out in Europe, it does mention Conspiracy. So, yeah, that's kind of an odd thing. Next up is New York Race. This was the second game that was based on the film The Fifth Element. First one being The Fifth Element itself from Gaumont Multimedia. This game, on the other hand, was developed by Callisto Entertainment, like with that Fifth Element game, licensed by Gaumont Multimedia, which the following year had shut down, and published by Wanadoo Edition, a short-lived French publisher that was soon merged with Microids. It was owned by France Telecom. This also came out in 2001, and I think it was another European exclusive release. So here's the manual. Nothing on the back, though. London Racer 2. This is a next-gen port of London Racer 2 for the PS1, developed and published by Davalix, a infamous Dutch publisher who made really bad racing games. Well, I mean, rushed-to-market racing games. But yet they sold really well. The original London Racer was a top seller for the PS1 because of it being a budget title. London Racer 2 was just as successful. And the PS2 version, I think, was as well. It actually does admit that the first game was bad. It says, sequels can be better than the original, in which this game is better than the original London Racer. It does have some more courses you can play on, but it's still not a great racing game at all. Pretty much all of Davalix's racing games were bad. So, yep, don't bother. But here is a racing game that is good. Midtown Madness 3, developed by Digital Illusions and published by Microsoft in 2003. I'm a big fan of the Midtown Madness games, and the third game is just as good as those, but it's pretty much, in my opinion, the worst out of the trilogy. It was from a different developer, as I said, not Angel Studios, who by then was renamed Rockstar San Diego, and reused the engine for the first two games in some other titles like Smuggler's Run and the Midnight Club series. But yeah, it's not the best, as I said, in the trilogy, but it's still a fun time regardless. And the only version of the game released exclusively for consoles, because the other two games were released on Windows. So, yeah, Midtown Madness 3, a fun racing game. There you go. Next up is a title, why do I even own this to begin with? Animal Soccer World, developed by the Code Monkeys and published by Phoenix Games. Essentially, all this is a very low-quality Disney knockoff movie, really produced by a company called Dingo Pictures in Germany. Very, 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 very badly dubbed into English. And funnily enough, this was the only one before Phoenix Games released it onto the PS1 as Animal Football, and then the PS2 as Animal Soccer World, that was not already dubbed into English. So they must have found someone from the Netherlands, from where they were hailed from, or one of their staff members who at least spoke some English, but it's still pretty obvious that the person who does all the voice acting in this doesn't really have much prior knowledge with the English language. So this version of the game is a 2007 re-release by the company Grabbit, but it's still published by Phoenix, and it's still a horrible, horrible, horrible title, which I'm still surprised why I even own it to begin with. Why did Sony even license it to begin with? And then, of course, there's some little mini games as well, which is likely how Sony were able to get it licensed to begin with. Ugh, this game's horrible. Next up is Unreal Championship 2, the Lorndori Conflict. I can't pronounce that. So this is the sequel to the original Unreal Championship that was released prior in 2002 by Infogrames. This game, unlike that one, uses an original storyline and whatnot, because Unreal Championship was more or less a console port of Unreal Tournament 2003. And this was the first game that Epic Games released under their new partnership with Midway. And eventually Midway started releasing the Unreal Tournament back catalogue until the 2010s or whenever. And on the back there's an ad for another game that I don't know the name of. It might just be a preview of something, so... Oh, it's a game... Oh, it's the reboot of Area 51. And there's also an ad for BT broadband as well and Xbox Live. Because the main purpose of Unreal Championship 1 and 2 were to play Unreal online. That was its, a big focus, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. Next is a game that you've seen me play before on my YouTube channel, Smarties Meltdown. A very bland 3D platformer developed by a company called EM Studios and published by Coach Media under the Europress banner. So it's a very generic adver game based on Smarties and has very little to do with Smarties. And they somehow managed to get Dave Benson Phillips in this game voicing Big Blue. That sort of rings a bell. Big Dave? Little Alex? Playhouse Disney? Yeah. Because Dave wore a blue shirt and they called him Big Dave, so yeah. That's funny. But this game is not funny. It's terrible. And then here's another licensed platformer, Strawberry Shortcake The Sweet Dreams game. Developed by EKO System and published by the Game Factory. So this is based on Strawberry Shortcake The Sweet Dreams movie, but it doesn't share the same plot line as the film. It's sort of meant to be like a sequel to the film, because it already mentions that Strawberry Shortcake has been there before with her friends. And it was also translated into languages where the film was not released in, interestingly enough. So, yeah. It was also known as Strawberry Shortcake Adventures in the Land of Dreams, but I think that may have just been its prototype name. Next up is a very curious shooter game for the PS2. Final Armada from I Imagine Interactive, a company, I think, based in South Africa. So this was, I think, the very first video game developed over there. It was published by Virgin Play, a Spanish distributor that used to be Virgin Interactive's Spanish division, and it was released in 2007. It also had a PSP port as well. And then on the back is an ad for the video game adaptation of Donkey Zote, a infamous Shrek knockoff. And he even admits that it was from the producers who saw Shrek. Yeah, right. Here's an Xbox 360 game from Empire Interactive and Bugbear, Flat Out Ultimate Carnage, an enhanced port of the original Flat Out 2 for the original PS2 and Xbox. Now this is a game that I really enjoy, because it's about destruction and everything. Yay! And then last but not least, is a game from a short-lived video game publisher that thought was going to be the next big thing. And it's Alvin and the Chipmunks, published by Brash Entertainment and developed by some company. Developed by Sensory Sweep Studios. So this was released at the end of 2007 for some platforms. It was a video game tie-in to the 2007 Alvin and the Chipmunks movie by 20th Century Fox and Regency Enterprises. And it was actually the best-selling of Brash Entertainment's video games, because a heavily botched deal with 20th Century Fox made Brash publish games based on some other IPs, infamously Space Chimps, which 20th Century Fox didn't even own. And eventually the company went out of business because of that. But anyways, that's that video done. And so for the next mixed batch, we'll take a look at a few more publishers. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.